All right. It is webinar time. Thank you everyone for joining us. Welcome to the WordPress.com webinars. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Danny, and I'll be your host for the next hour. I'm a happiness engineer with WordPress.com, so I provide support to our users through mainly chat and email support, but from time to time I do also present these webinars, so it's an honor to be with everyone here today. I'm based out of Quebec, Canada. And on the agenda today, just want to mention a few things. We are going to talk, have a little bit of a welcome message in the very beginning, just a few notes we want to talk about. We will have the live presentation that will be mostly a slide deck with a little bit of slides. We're also going to go into the dashboard and demonstrate a few things. And before we began, I just wanted to mention a few important things about this webinar. You might be here because of you have a self-hosted WordPress website, and this webinar is mostly directed towards our WordPress.com users, or most of the things that we'll be demonstrating, you'll be able to do also on your self-hosted site. There are some things when we get to that part, I'll be able to clarify that this is specific to WordPress.com. Everything that I'm demonstrating here today is going on a free plan. So the block editor, the site editor, all of it can be done with a free plan. Also, I wanted to mention that today I'm not alone. I actually have some colleagues that are tuning in. I have Jerry and David who will help me to manage the stream, and also they'll be able to answer some of your questions. So we are actually broadcasting on 2 platforms today. We're broadcasting on both on Zoom and also on YouTube Live. So I'll be able to see some of the questions that you have. So make sure that if you are attending on Zoom, you have a chat box you can use. You can test now to see if it works. I'd love to hear where everyone's coming from. So you can go ahead and use the chat box. So you do have a little bit of a drop down where you can switch to make sure that you're chatting with everyone. So you can go ahead and test that. And I can see people already have that worked out already. We have Yvette here from New York City. We have folks also from Pennsylvania, Lisa from Pennsylvania. So thank you very much for joining us. So I'll be able to answer some of your questions. I'm looking forward to them. I'll be focusing mostly on the webinar for the beginning, on the presentation for the first majority of our presentation, and towards the end we'll have more time to answer some of your questions that we'll have. All right, we have people tuning in from all over the world. Actually, we have people all the way from Indonesia, from Dublin, Ireland, and from the Philippines. So I know that's pretty possibly a little bit later for everyone over there. So thank you very much for tuning in and for watching this webinar. All right, so let's get started. So I'm going to go ahead, move my windows a little bit. So switching over to my slideshow tab. All right, so today's webinar is a very special topic. We're talking about site editing, customizing and creating your site headers. So let's talk about what is a header. So the header, let's quickly break down what this is and why it's an important component of your website. So the header is typically a horizontal area that spans the page's width, and it's typically located on top of your page. And most commonly, it contains at least the site title, logo, or main navigation. And because this is present on every page and links, this also links to the main sections of your site. So it serves as a way for users to easily access the most important or main sections of your site. And it can also include other elements so search bar, social icon, call to action buttons as well. And why is a header important? Because this is part of the visitor's first impression. So when you go on a website, you probably have that first impression when you load the page on the front page, but what's really on top, what strikes users first most of the time is that header that they see first. So we can use the header as an opportunity to make it your way, customize, add your own branding and your own personal touch. That's what we recommend. So a lot of what we'll be demonstrating today, it will use the site editor. And you might ask yourself, can my theme do this? Can I do this with my WordPress site? So because this is a new feature, not all themes support site editing. So if you have a classic theme that you've used in the past, you won't be able to exactly follow what we're doing here. So typically for the classic themes that you had in the past, you would use the theme. The design of your header was really conceived by the theme developers. So the theme developers had a specific design in mind that when you chose the theme, you're sticking with that design. And most of the time, you are editing or changing the header by going to customize and under appearance. But if you have our newer block themes, you can use full site editor. So you can follow everything that I'll be doing in this demonstration. And how can you tell if your site is compatible with the editor? There's a little bit of a tab here under the appearance tab where you'll see a little beta label that you can use. So I'm going to go ahead to the next one. And if you are creating a new WordPress.com site or creating a new account, by default, this is all you should already have one of the themes that support full site editing. And it's also referred to as full site editing. So interestingly, there's also third-party themes that are coming out. So if you are searching for them, we often use the term full site editing or site editing, sometimes for short. And just maybe a quick parenthesis, I'll show you how you can find those themes, but you can also quickly look at the themes that you can choose. You can go to WordPress.com. And then you can filter for full site editing themes. You can look at what we have, or you can also use this direct link. Actually, I think I'm just going to take 2 seconds to show where you can find these themes. So I just switched over to my dashboard. I'm going to go to appearance, and we can see the tab. I have the beta here. That means that I'm already using a theme that supports it. But if I go to themes, most of the themes that I see here on top will already support full site editing, but I can filter to make sure that this theme supports it. So I'm going to go ahead and full site editing. So all of these themes support it. And I can even filter with the free version and see all of the other compatible themes that I can use to follow this presentation on how to create your custom header. All right. So today we'll be working on a familiar site. If you've attended our webinars in the past, maybe you've seen this website. So it's our Main Street camera. So this was created by my colleague Jerry, who is a photography fan. So our main website that we'll be demoing today is using a full site editing compatible theme. It's the Zoologist theme. And the header already includes the very basic blocks that I mentioned earlier. So you'll have the site logo, you'll have a site title, and you'll have your navigation. So let's take a few moments to take a look at what it looks like. So I'm going to click next. Let's see it. So now I'm just going to switch over to the actual demo page, demo site. I'm going to switch over to here. And you can recognize this site. So here on top, we have the site logo that we added. We have our site title. And also here on top, we have our main navigation. So this entire area here is the header. What we see here on top is actually not part of the header. The only reason I'm seeing this is because I'm logged in to my WordPress.com account. So I have a quick little toolbar that I can use as shortcuts to go back to my dashboard, to open the reader, start publishing, or even go to manage my account if I need to. So this is not part of what users will see. We only see this because we're logged into the website, into our account and onto this website. So this entire section here on top is the header, and we can see how when we first get on the page, how this section is important because it's featured first, and this is where we'll have links that leads to our other pages, right? We have the camera workshops is going to lead us to our other pages on our website. All right. So a lot of what we'll be doing today will involve the site editor. So I just want to have a little quick overview of how different the site editor is compared to what you were using before. So if you used WordPress before in the past where you were creating your content in your posts or pages, you are typically working directly on the content of your website. Now with the site editor, what's great is that you're working on the form and the structure of your website. So these are two different things, and it's a little bit challenging at first to separate the two. What is my content and what is the form? And with a little bit of, as you start to use the platform a little bit more, you'll start to understand the distinction between the two, and you'll be able to understand, oh, this is something that I should be doing on the block editor when I'm creating my content. This is what I should be going when I want to change my structure or my form. What's interesting here, the site editor, no plugins are required. So typically before, powerful page building editors required plugins all the time. So in this case, no plugins are required. Everything I'm doing here is also possible on just a free plan. As long as you have a theme that is compatible, you can use the site editor. Just wanted to mention, we've seen the label that I showed you earlier. It's still in a beta version, so it's continuously in development. So this means that it contains most of the major features, but it's not yet complete. So you can expect navigation and placement to change, and new features, options getting added and streamlined. All right. And today we're just showing you a brief glimpse of the site editor, but we're taking, we have a lot of resources on the topic. So we have this webinar. We also have another webinar on full site editing that explains a more in-depth the difference between the two editors, the block editor and the site editor. We have a lot of courses and we have a lot of support docs as well. So I'm not sure if my colleagues could maybe share a few more links. All right, thank you very much. So we're just going to take a little quick glimpse, but before we go into the site editor, I just want to talk about the different sections of the site editor. And that one of the sections is the template browser. And this kind of helps to explain why we go through the template browser to edit our header. So when we navigate to the template browser, and I'll show this, it'll be easier for everyone who's visual on when I demonstrate it on the next slide, but you will have two main sections. You'll have the templates and you'll have the template parts. So the template parts are just the parts. They're not exactly a full template. They are the small sections that you use to create an entire template. And in this case, the header is going to be a template part. So you can understand how this is important. And so what will this allow us to do? It allows custom headers per page. I can go into my page templates and I can switch the template part on that template. And so I can set a custom header for each of my pages. All right, time for a tour. So I'm going to switch over to my demo, to my dashboard. And here I was back when I was able to show you the different themes. And I'm going to go straight into my editor. So I got the editor link right here. I'm going to click on it. And by default, I think I started working on it already. So it's taking me already to the site editor. So it looks a lot like the block editor, but typically you might also, if you click on the site editor, there's a good chance that you land on this first. So this is what we call the block browser. You're not really changing anything here yet. You're only browsing and taking a peek at the different designs that we have. So here we can see which template we're looking at right now. This is the page without title. So my home page is using this template. And here we can see the different templates that my theme comes with. I have the page without title template. I have, for example, my single page template, a single post template. I have my page templates, and I have different templates. Themes. All right, so here, and then I also have the other sections I was referring to earlier, the template parts. So these are just smaller sections that we use to create an entire template. So yes, I do notice that there are some questions in the webinar chat. I just want to make sure that we bring full attention to your questions. So make sure you can find the Q&A tab, the Q&A button on the Zoom toolbar. So if you click that, it should open up another window that's not exactly the chat, that's Q&A. So this allows us to see the questions, and others can also see the questions, so that we have a good distinction between the chat and the Q&A. And also, we've enabled upvoting. So if you see a question that's interesting, you could just go ahead and upvote it, so I can make sure that I can get to it towards the end. It might be a little bit harder for me to backtrack and go through the chat and find the questions there. So the Q&A section on Zoom is really practical for that. So make sure you can click on it. And if you don't see the Q&A question on your toolbar, click on the more. So the 3 horizontal dots on your toolbar, maybe it's right there. And you could just find the Q&A section, and that should open the pop-up where you can ask a question. You can also ask anonymous questions if you want. So back to our topic of templates and template parts. I'm going to go into template parts where I can see listing all of my templates. So I can see now all of my template parts. For in this example, I have my header template, and it's only that part that I was showing you earlier with my site logo, with my title, and my navigation. So this, of course, as you can see, it's not the entire template. This is what's different, but it's just a small section of it. Right? It's just the header and it's just the footer. And for now, those are probably the 2 main template parts that we use. It's either a header or a footer. So let's actually go into our main template that's being used on our homepage, the page without title. I can preview it right here. And I'm going to click on edit right here. And this will take me directly into the site editor. So once that I'm here, it looks a lot like the block editor, and I'd like to show you maybe a few tricks to make sure because they look so similar, you want to use this tab that you see right here that you can expand on the right side with the settings. So this will tell me I'm working on a template. I'm actually not working on a page or a post. So this will, of course, be different. If you're working on a post or a page, this first tab will tell you you're working on a page. You're working on a post. So this is very important. You can refer to this part, to this little section to make sure to confirm what you're working on. So here, for this part of the demonstration, I'm not going to add any components. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and just edit what I already have. So just a quick note here. So if I set up my new theme and I have with every new theme, typically, it's usually the same header that's applied on every page. So this is a quick way of editing the header so that it's consistent. Because essentially, when you first install the theme, you only have one header that is applied on most of your pages already. So in this case, what I'll do is I just want to demonstrate a little bit of how it works. So I can click on the header, and every element that's inside the header, essentially, they are blocks that I use that are very similar to the block editor. But there are some blocks that are more specific to the header. So for example, the site logo, this is not an image block. This is the site logo block. This is the site title block. And this is the navigation block that I was able to show you earlier in our demo. So whenever I do have one of this item selected, I get, just like for any blocks that when I'm editing content, I get a floating toolbar when I get to change the settings. So for example, I can change the position right here. I can crop the image. I can add a duotone filter. I can replace the image if I want. And so this toolbar and the settings here on the right side, they will change depending on what I have selected. So if I select my icon, I have the toolbar here, and I have 2 sets of tabs here. I have the styles that I can change, and I can also go deeper into the settings here. So I can set like a manual value to my icon if I wanted to. Other options, I can have it open in a new tab. I can use this image as a site icon as well. So in this case, I'll just make some very minor changes just to illustrate the process. So I'm interested maybe in shrinking my logo a little bit. Maybe I'd like to add a little bit of a filter, duotone filter here. So I'll add maybe so this would actually change the color, but since it's already black and white, it's not really colorizing it. Here I can change by selecting my title. I can change the font, the size. So if I wanted to try a different size, I want to try maybe medium. Maybe it's a little bit aggressive with all capitals. So I maybe want to have lowercase or sentence case. So it's a little bit cleaner like that. And also, I can change the font. If I don't like this one, I can experiment with different fonts, and I'll see it change directly. So I have different options to choose from. This one might look different. So I'm just going to change the font and save the change so that you'll be able to see the change on the live page. And also, you can set a custom size. So now they're the default small, medium, large, extra large values, but you can also set the customize the size here, right here. So you can change it in pixels if you need to change the unit. So I can change it in pixels, for example, and maybe set a manual value like 24 if I wanted to have something that's consistent. Also, if I wanted to reset, I could just go ahead and click these buttons and just reset my font size, bring it back to default, if I ever change anything. So this is pretty handy if I, instead of undoing what I did, of course, you could always use the undo button on the top left, but you could also just reset the default if you're not sure how it was. So I made some minor changes. I've changed my title. I can also change the color if I wanted, set a background element. And also, this is an important part because this is the next block I want to talk about is the navigation block. So this part is really important because it's where you have links that lead to your other pages. And by default, depending on the theme that you pick, sometimes this is included, sometimes it's not. So with our theme, we already had a navigation block. So we can see that here that by clicking on it, we have the toolbar that appears where we have some settings and also the plus sign where we're able to add another link. So let's say if I wanted to add another link, I click on add block and I can already add a link to one of my pages. And this is smart enough to recognize some of the links that I've used to search for the links that I have already published on my website. So this could be a post, this could be a page, this could be categories as well. So if I look for example camera, I don't even need to put the entire URL. I just need to search for my page and it's gonna look up for everything that I have with camera. So camera here, and I have this label that's gonna help me to guide to determine what is this page. Right? What is this content, to categorize a bit of the content. So this is the camera page. Well, if I go down, this is a post that I have on Studio Lightning. And this is a page that I have on About Us. So this label is going to be really handy. And for example, it helps you if you wanted to add a category. If you're blogging and you have different categories for your posts, camera facts, I could just go and add that directly to my menu. So I could just try that. I'm just going to select that. And camera facts is already there for me, added to my navigation. So that's a quick way to add more links to your website. And also, if you wanted to add a submenu, this is how you do it. So you'd select the parent item in which you want to have the submenu appear out of. And when you click on add submenu, you get a link that appears right under, where you can customize the link afterwards. So you can add the link here. And also this icon, you'll see this frequently on the great majority of the blocks that we have. This is the icon that you can use to set links, to add links pretty much anywhere. Image block, anywhere that you think of, you can use this. If you see this block, you can add a link to it. So in this case, just gonna undo. Going to do a little bit of change for the submenu because I'm not saving anything. So this is the basic steps that you can follow if you're looking to just customize what's already part of your theme. Most of what you'll do at first is definitely customize your navigation block to add the new pages that you're adding directly to your site. Before I move on to the next step, I want to show you something that's pretty neat, and this is the list view tool. So I'm going to open this up, and this is going to open on the side. And I want you to notice what happens. My page kind of moves a little bit. It shifts to the left, and it's like in the center. An important thing to remember when we are in the block editor, it is prioritizing the editing view. So I might, because I'm expanding the list view tool, it's restricting it to the side. What I like to do sometimes to make sure I can see everything, I can hide the settings on the right side, so I can have more room to work with. So I can actually, if I wanted to remove both, I could do that. But from time to time, maybe if I, so you can use these to navigate to make sure that it's easy to click on the various elements on your page. So with the list view, what the list view is, it allows us to see the various elements on your page in a list. So as you can see here, I've got the header. that's color coded. Because it's a template part, it is showing in purple. This is a header. So this is a part of the bigger page without title template. So it's showing up as purple. And we also see what it's called. It's just called header. I'm going to click on it and see what happens. I can see what's inside. I can see that in the header, there is a group block where all of my blocks are contained. And I can further expand this to see how it's organized. So notice what happens when I hover with my mouse on the various blocks. There's the blue outline that appears. So this tells us which block this is. So I can go and select each of these individually into the settings. And I can also use the 3 dots here in the settings to change some of the settings that are specific to this block already. So the settings that I have here are the same settings that I have access to here. So it becomes really practical. For me, I'm starting to use the list view a lot to make changes directly on my content. So I just wanted to show the list view now. And we're going to get a little bit more, we're going to take it to the next level in the next part of our demonstration, where we're actually going to add some new blocks to this. So I changed the font here. I added a link in my menu right here. And what I want to do, I'm actually going to save this. And I want to show you something really important that happens when I click on save. So when I click on save, the 2 things will happen is my pre-publishing check will just confirm what elements I'm saving. So you remember I edited the template part. So I changed the typography. I changed a little bit of the size of the logo. So it's confirming that with the changes that I'm saving by clicking save, it's confirming that I'm saving the header. And it's also confirming that I'm saving the header navigation. So the new link that I added to my navigation. So this pre-publishing check is important, and it's going to come in pretty handy to make sure to confirm what you saved, what you're working on. So I'm going to go ahead and click save. And this is our header. And let's see what's happening now on our homepage. I'm going to refresh. And we can see that the changes I made are there. So my logo is a little bit smaller, my title is smaller, as well as my navigation now. I have the extra link that I have here. So this is a quick way that you can go to make the basic changes on your header. So next part of the webinar, next step that we're going to talk about, we will be creating a new header from scratch. So now that I gave you a basic overview, in order to create a new header, there's 2 ways that we can do this, and I'll demonstrate both of the ways. You can either start from scratch, add your own blocks, but what I recommend that you duplicate your existing header. So by duplicating it, you're also keeping it consistent. So you already built a header that you really like, and you can just duplicate it so that you're consistent and that it keeps a consistency if you want to especially set it on different pages. And it's a great base to start from, because as you can see, there's a lot of containers. We had a lot of row blocks, different blocks that were contained within each other. So when you use an existing header, it's easier to customize. I do recommend that way to go. And so on our new header that we had, we will be adding some new blocks. We'll add a search block, we'll add a social icons block, and we'll take advantage of some of our group blocks. So the row and stack blocks to arrange content horizontally or vertically, and also the cover block for background images and videos. All right, so let's go into this demo. So this is the more advanced part, and this is what I've been waiting for the most. All right, so I'm going to go back to my blog browser, open the navigation sidebar. I'm going to go back 1 step, and I'm going to go back to my section of template parts. And when I'm in my template parts section, I can see all my other template parts, but I'm going to click on plus here because I want to add a new one. So I'm going to add a new. And I already had one called header new, so I'm just going to call this one header newest, and I'm going to pick the header template part here and just click create. And here, we're back into the block editor, into the site editor. So it looks very familiar. We have the same toolbar. We have our blocks that we can choose from the top, and it's basically blank. So I can see, I can use my list view tool here to open this up. I can see it's fairly blank. There's only the default paragraph block that's there in our header right now. So the trick that I want to give you to load, so you could start from scratch. You could individually look for your blocks. So I could either use the plus sign here to add a block. So I could look for site logo, and I can add them individually. I can also use the block browser to search for the different components. But here's what I recommend. So we already had a header that we used in the past. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add the entire header that we had before. So I'm going to type go plus, and instead of typing the name of a block, I'm just going to type header. And header, you can recognize the purple color to designate this is the template part. So I'm going to add the normal, this is just the one with the capital letters, just I'm adding a header, and I can choose which of the headers that I already have. So I'm going to click choose, and I'm going to choose the header I was using earlier. So this one. And we can see the changes that I made earlier. So the change in typography, even adding the link here for camera facts is already there. So this is a great starting point, but important, very important. Do not stop here. This is not, it's not over yet. What you want to do here to make sure that you can use the blocks, I just want to use the list view again to show you what happens here. Now you have a header on your header. That's not what you want to do. The right thing to do is to detach these blocks from the template part. So the blocks that were used on that header are now blocks that you can use on your newest header, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and save this right away. Save this. And it's going to ask me to confirm, do I want to save this template part as the header newest? Yes, I do. Let's go. Let's save this. All right, perfect. Now let's go on and let's try a few things. What can we do with this header, and how can we customize it even further? So I've shown you that we can go into the blocks and edit what we already have. But what I'd like to do now is I'd like to add different sections. And how am I going to do that? I'm going to add a row block. So I'm going to add some containers. So one thing I'd like to do, I can add it here. Actually, with the list view, I'm going to show you a neat little trick. I'm going to go into the list view. And when I was showing you earlier that you have different options to add a block, if I select the insert after option here, I can insert a block right here, and it follows, it will be at the same level as the group. And this is what's important. The difference is it follows the group instead of being inside the group, inside this one. So if I insert my block afterwards, then I'm able to have, they're at the same level. So in this case, I have my default block, but I want to turn this into a row. So I could just do my plus sign. I could search for row. And so I have this empty space here where I can add some blocks. And I can click on the plus to add the block. And here I have an idea. I'd like to maybe incorporate a social icons menu. So I'm just going to type on social. And by clicking the social icons, I have the block that's added. Right now it's blank because I haven't added any links to it. So I'm going to go ahead and click plus, and I can add, for example, my Tumblr. I can click again on the social icon menu, and then I can add a link. It's only after we add a link that we'll be able to see it. And if I want to add more, I'll go ahead and add more. Pinterest here. All right. So now I have a row and I have my social icons. They are the only block on this row. And I'd like to add something else on this row. I'm thinking maybe a search bar would be good, interesting for my users, so they can come in, and if I have interesting posts, they could just search through my post directly. So unlike what I did earlier, I'm not going to do insert after by selecting the row, because I'll be adding a block after the row. what I want to do in this case, I'm going to select the child item inside social icons, and I want to add a block after, insert after. So I prefer to use this method to add blocks because it has the logical, it follows logically based on the list view. While here, it might be a little bit challenging to find the plus. Where am I clicking plus? Because you really have to either select the element or hover with your mouse to find the right place for the plus sign to add the block. So this is why I prefer to use the list view to make sure I'm adding the block at the right level. So in this case, I have added the basic block, but I'd like to switch that over. Let's switch that over to a search block. So I can do a plus again to search, but as I just demonstrated, there's a quick little shortcut I can do. If I do a slash like this, I have my most frequently used blocks. So I can just search, type for what I need, search, and it's going to show up with my search bar. So in this case, I'm adding a search bar. And again, just as I was showing you earlier with the different blocks, I have different settings that I can change here, and also different settings that I can change here on the right side. So let me take this away for now. I'd like to take off the site, take off the search label. I'm going to go ahead and maybe have the button inside. Also, the entire search button is maybe a little bit, it's a lot. So let me just use the search icon. I like that a little bit better. So now we have the blocks that we want. What we want to set here is we want to work on the arrangement, the alignment. Everything is stacked to the left. And in order for me to do that, I have to go into the parent block, which is my row block. So if I open my list view again, I see my two blocks that are contained inside this row. But if I click on row, on the floating toolbar for the row is where I can change the justification. So right now, everything's aligned to the left. I can align everything to the center. I can align everything to the right. I can have an even space between my items. So as you can see, even space, really spaced out my social icons and my search block here on the right side. So everything here is contained within a row. And one thing I don't think I was able to clarify yet. So the row block is a group block that groups blocks together. But what it does is that it groups them horizontally. So this is what is preferable to use with your headers. So let me just show you something really quickly. If I go into my settings, when I am selecting a block, I'm always going to see a description of it here. And for the row block, what's unique is I can actually switch between the different forms. So I can go into a group block. So the group block is just regrouping blocks together, but it doesn't have like an arrangement. So it's just blocks together. And so the row is going to arrange them as we wanted horizontally. So I have them on the same line. But if I wanted as well, I can also have it stacked. So as a container, I'd like to have, my icons or search bar on top, so I can stack. I can use a stack block instead if I wanted to arrange icons vertically. So let's keep it to the row, and let's just change the setting back to space in between. So now I was able to add social icons. I was able to add a search block, but it's really up to you to decide whatever block you want to add. And it's fun. This is fun because you can look at other websites, look at their headers, see what it looks like, and you can sort of like use those ideas for inspiration. You could try to find if there's a matching block that you could search for. I saw something interesting. Let me see if there's a block. So you can always search for the block. Oh, they had something neat here. Let me search for it. And you can always add it to your header. So this is what I recommend that you do. You can add some different rows to add to your header. And let's go ahead and maybe add one more row. So this row would be kind of popular. It's what we use sometimes for maybe a promotional banner. So I'm just going to go ahead and do row. And I'm just going to add one after, insert after. And do row. And right here, I just want to add a paragraph block. And I have a preset text. So for example, this is handy, and you've probably seen this on different websites. I can add a little banner. I'm just going to add my preset text here. So I have, for example, a message where I can add a phone number. I can style it with my floating toolbar. I can make it bold. And if I have an email address I want people to see right away, I can select the email address. And when I click on link, what's really cool with emails, it already recognizes that it's an email. So it just creates the hyperlink for the email right away. And then now that I have the paragraph block, I can make sure that it's centered. And I can also make sure that this is something important, that I also have to make sure that the setting for the row block is also what's going to decide where it's how it's justified. So I'm going to justify this one center. So I have this message here on right here. And maybe I want to add a background color to add a little bit of highlight. So when I have the row selected, I can add a background color to the entire row. Do it like that. And I can see it's a little bit grayer. And what I'm going to do now, it's a little bit wide. So I'm just going to try to change the dimension a little bit on this row block. I'm going to select the row block. And I have these spacing and padding values that I can change here. So I can go ahead and change the padding. So as you can see by the, it had a default value when I added the background color. But as I slide through, we can see the blue gap that increases. I have more space here. So this is how I can add a banner, for example, on my header, call, email, promotional codes, join our newsletters, or a quick message that you can also add on your header. And this is what's neat. So I've been adding so far rows one after the other, but let's say I wanted to move this all the way to the top. I can select this row and I can use the icons that are here, the functions that are here. I can move it up. And as you can see, the entire row is moving up. Now I have this completely at the top. And also what's neat with the list view, I could also use my mouse. I could click and hold and drag this to the very bottom, and it's going to go into the row at the very bottom. So this is really handy. All right. So far so good. I've been able to create a pretty interesting header. So a quick little message. So you can also, as I said earlier, use the different blocks that you can think of. I'm going to take it one more level, and I'm going to show you the cover block before we get to our Q&As. So I'm going to add one more at the very end. I'm going to do insert after, and this one I'm going to add a cover block. Cover block, because this is a very popular style for a lot of themes. I'm going to add an image behind, and then I'm going to add everything that I'm seeing here on our blocks on this image. So I'm going to go ahead and select one of the images that I have already, but you can also use our free photos integration with pixels, and this is unique to WordPress.com. So if you have a self-hosted website, you can always go to pixels.com and download free stock images from there. In this case, I already have one in my media library, so I'm just going to pick something pretty simple with my film. I'm just going to add this here. It's a little bit dark, and I have a paragraph block that's here. So the cover block is a container. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take all of these blocks, and I can use the Shift key on my keyboard to select all of these blocks. And I'm just going to slide them over to my cover block right here. As we can see, everything is contained with that cover block. I'm just going to go ahead and delete this paragraph. My cover block is a little bit dark, so I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit of an overlay, a white overlay, and maybe increase the overlay a little bit. So I just have like a little bit of a styling like this. So here, right here. So I'm going to save, and I'm going to replace it on a header. And I just want to show you a good habit you can get into. So I'm just going to go ahead and save. And as you can see on the template, was asking what I was saving. So I just saved my newest part. So now I've just saved the header on its own. It's not ready yet. It's not added to any template part. So with the next part of my demo, I'm going to show you how we can replace the template part. So I'm going to go ahead and switch that over. So how am I replacing the template part? It's done in very quick steps. So I'll choose my template from the blog browser. I'll swap with the replace header function. Then I'll save. And I can repeat the process for my other templates. And after I'm done, we can just go ahead and enjoy our new header. So let's do that. I'm going to go back to my site editor. So now that it's saved, the newest header here is saved. It's good to go. I'm going to go back to my browser. And I can see that the piece is there for my new header, my newest header. So I'm going to go now to my templates. The main template, what I was using for my homepage, which is the page without title. And I still have my old template that's here, my old header. Sorry about that, header part. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on edit. And now I'm just going to click on the header and I'm going to go ahead and replace it. So once I select the header item here, the global header, the template part, I'm able to click on the 3 dots. And this will allow me to replace the header. So I'm going to choose this option and I'm going to pick the newest one I just created, header newest. And now it's adding the header to the template part. And I'm going to save. And save and see what happens here. Main Street camera. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh. And you'll see I left a mistake purposefully so that we can correct it and we can see where my mistake was. So we can see my new headers on my new page. It looks amazing. But this, I've only edited the home page to add the header. So if I go to cameras, I'm still seeing my old one. So if I go to home, I'm seeing my new header. And I left a purposeful an error by mistake. The banner here is right in the middle of the cover block. So I want to correct this. I want to move this to the top. I can go back into my template, even do this from here. I'm just going to move my row block here, and I'm actually going to drag it outside of the cover. So it's going to be it's at the same level as the cover. It's going to follow the cover now. And if I save this again within the template, it's going to ask me, what am I saving? I'm saving the header newest. I'm going to go ahead and click save. And when I refresh my page, oh, there we go. My banner's at the top, and I have this very neat new header. Some other ways that I can continue to customize this, I can also select my header. I can also shrink the height. It's a little bit too tall. It's a little bit too short. I can change this here. If I have a longer picture, maybe in a different orientation. And for most blocks that support it, you have another settings tab here. For example, I can change the focal point for the image that is used in the background, right? So I can do this, change it up. Let me just save that. And there you go. So this is how you can replace the template parts on your pages. So if I wanted to repeat the process for my other pages, I'd go back into my blog browser. And so I can see this one has a new header, and I can go into page, and I'd repeat the same process. So I go into edit, and I'll select my header. And this is why you see that using the list view is a little bit easier. I'll select my header, then I'll replace my header. Then I can select the new one that I have, repeat the process for my different templates. All right. So I just want to do a quick little recap of the tips that will help you moving forward with the header. So use container blocks, use your row blocks, use the stack block, use the group block, and don't be afraid. Also, it's totally normal that you will have containers within containers, totally normal. So the list view is one of the tools that will really help you to manage that. I like to duplicate blocks for consistency. So I was able to demonstrate earlier how I just duplicated the header. But if you want it to be really consistent, let's say you're adding different elements to your header, I like to duplicate straight up the row. So I can go into a row into my header, and I could just duplicate an entire row. So if I go here, I could just select this row. If I wanted to have a different message, for example, and just duplicate it. And this is an easy way for me to be consistent because it has the same disposition, has the same element, and the same padding or the same values that I set here for spacing, for example. All right. Use list view often to add, select, move, and verify the block hierarchy. So I almost always have it open when I'm working on my header, and use your mouse freely to move things around. And pay attention to the pre-publishing checks when you're saving. So when you are saving your template, your post or anything, the pre-publishing check will confirm what you're saving. And that's it. It's a lot of material in 1 hour. So if you want to watch this webinar again, it'll be available shortly after the upload, and probably in about in a few minutes from now. So I wanted to thank everyone for watching. Thank you for joining us today. We have some times to answer some of the questions that you have. But before we get to your questions, just wanted to mention that we do have some other webinars. So WordPress.com/webinars is where you're able to see the other webinars. We have online courses you can follow. If you feel that it's a little bit too complicated and overwhelming for creating your own site, you can always have our experts build your site for you. So WordPress.com/do-it-for-me. All right, so let's get to your questions. I'm sorry, I might have missed a few, but my colleagues, David and Jerry, were awesome at picking up some of these questions. So I do have one by Lisa here, who's asking, is there a suggestion for how many blocks to have in the navigation block? Currently, my site has 11. Actually, it's really up to you. There's no limit. So if you feel that you have too much, here's what I would do if I was you here, Lisa. So what I would do here, I'm gonna move this out, and you know how I had my navigation block here, and it feels like I'm limited a bit, but here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna duplicate the row in which I have my navigation block. I'm gonna duplicate this entire row, and you'll see why duplicating comes in easy, because now I have the very same navigation block. And what I'm gonna do instead, I'm gonna delete my title. I'm gonna delete my logo, and I actually had another row here. So I'm actually going to delete this row so that the only thing that I have on this row is the navigation block. So I can feel more comfortable to add more. So in this case, I'm just going to line it up to be maybe in the center. I'm just going to select the row block. This is an important little detail. Justify this in the center, and I can delete the one that I had here on top. Just go ahead and remove the navigation. So now I have a much cleaner, I can take advantage of more space to show more links. I can have more. So I can't really suggest an amount. It's really up to the content that you want, but take advantage of your submenus. So if here you feel that you have too many, and for example, camera facts makes sense, but I could add it as a submenu, for example, under something different. So maybe camera facts, I could add this under blog, for example, so to add a different category. And of course, you have different layers of this. So this, you're not limited to only one submenu. I can add a submenu, and I can keep going after that. I can add another submenu, so I can add a submenu to a submenu. It kind of gets a lot, but there really is no limit. And it's really, yeah, there really is no limit. If you need some advice on how you want to organize things, for sure, we can give you some advice. Also, in the navigation block here, what's really handy is I can go ahead and just delete some of my links by using the list view right here. Right, so I can have this like this. So thank you, Lisa. That was a great question. Go ahead and dismiss that. And Lisa also is asking, I thought I was using Zoologist. Do I need to start over to get the navigation bar? That's a great question. The navigation bar typically is a block you could add. So if I was, depending on how you already have your header set up, you can just add the block and just look for normal navigation block. And you can move that block around and position it wherever you want. Or typically, Zoologist also comes with the default headers. So I'm going to show you maybe another section of our template browser. So I'm just going to go back to it. If you made a mistake and you want to start over again, this is how I would do it. So for example, my header that I customized in the very beginning with the styling here a little bit, I shrunk the logo a little bit. I can go into manage all template parts, and this is what's going to be really useful. I can see the new ones that I added. So these ones were added by me. And the Zoologist ones are the ones that were created by the theme. And so what happens here is I see a little dot to confirm that this template was customized, or this template part rather was customized. So this header was customized. If I want to start over, this is what I do, Lisa. I'd go here, manage all template parts. excuse me. And then I would just go ahead and clear the customization. So if I clear the customization, the header that I customized in the very beginning is going to go back to the default version. So if I go back to my header right here, it circled back. Well, it should go default back to the original version. So that's it. Navigation bar, and yeah, that's it. Not sure if I missed any other questions, but I wanted to thank everyone who was able to attend. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to host this webinar for the last hour. The hour went by really fast. So if we don't have any other questions are open, in case you need to go back to the chat to save any of the links. So I'm going to leave it open for another maybe 5 minutes. And after that, I'll close the webinar. So just wanted to thank everyone again for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. So everyone, have a great day.